She cleaned his wound and gave him antibiotics. No chart, no paperwork. That's what got her suspended. That's what the administrator said after she quietly treated a struggling veteran the system had ignored. She didn't argue. She didn't beg. She just handed over her badge and walked out. But 3 hours later, the elevator dinged, and a 4-star general stepped into the hospital lobby. He wasn't lost. He asked for her by name. If you believe doing the right thing should never cost your job, comment respect. Claire Morgan, 36, had worked at Riverside General for nearly 11 years. She was the kind of nurse who addressed every patient as sir or ma'am, no matter their shoes, condition, or background. That Wednesday afternoon, a man limped into the ER lobby. He was thin, sunbeaten, older. His ID read Walter Briggs. The dog tag on his keychain said U.S. Army. His jeans were torn. A long gash streaked across his calf, infected, swollen, angry. The front desk clerk glanced at him and muttered, "No insurance." Claire heard it. "That doesn't mean he doesn't. Need help," she said. The charge nurse frowned. "We can't admit him, not in the system." "Then I'll treat him off the system," Claire replied. She grabbed a med kit, sat him down quietly, and cleaned the wound. Antibiotics, bandages, a granola bar from her own lunch bag. Walter winced as she worked. "Ma'am, I don't want to be a burden." Claire gave him a small, steady smile. "You fought for this country. Let someone fight for you now." His eyes were dry, but they looked like they'd seen too much desert and not enough mercy. "Thank you," he whispered. "You didn't see me," she said softly, "but you're not walking out of here limping." The next morning, she was called to administration. "You violated policy," the director said. "Unauthorized medication, unauthorized treatment." Claire stood tall. "I helped a man who served this country. You're suspended pending review. No hearing, no warning, just a hallway." That felt colder with every step. She packed her locker in silence. 10 years gone, in one meeting. Outside, the sun was too bright. She held her purse and her coat. No badge, no goodbyes. In the car, she whispered aloud, "I'd do it again." His voice echoed in her memory. "Thank you, ma'am." She replayed it over and over as she drove home through familiar streets that now felt distant. At her kitchen table, she placed her nursing textbooks in a stack. All those lessons on protocol. None of them had ever taught her what to do when a rule came face to face with a person who just needed help. She made a cup of tea. Let it go cold. By evening, whispers had started. Some coworkers texted. A few said they supported her. Most didn't say anything at all. Then someone posted online. "Nurse suspended for helping a veteran. Welcome to 2025. Comments flooded. "In.policy over people. This is why we lose good ones. My father served and was treated like trash when he came back. God bless that nurse. Disgusting. She's a hero. Period. If this is true, that hospital should be ashamed. My brother came home from Afghanistan with PTSD and no help. Thank God for nurses like her. Fire the administrator instead. If he'd been wearing a suit and had Blue Cross, they'd have given him a warm towel and a private room." Riverside General stayed silent. No statement, no apology. Claire sat on her porch, trying not to cry. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages from co-workers, from veterans, from strangers. One message stood out. "He told me what you did. You don't know me, but I know him. I'm coming." No name, no number, just that. Inside the hospital, the administrator held firm. "We can't reward rule-breaking," said Richard Hale, his voice clipped. "It's about structure, not emotion." The next morning, everything changed. Crew, 14 a.m. The elevator dinged. A man stepped into the hospital lobby, crisp uniform pressed, 4 silver stars gleaming on his shoulder boards. The security guard froze. "Can I help you, sir?" The general didn't even glance at him. I'm looking for Nurse Claire Morgan." Word spread like brush fire. Phones came out. Staff peeked from break rooms and corners. Hale rushed down from administration, tie askew. "General, may I ask what this is regarding?" The general's voice was calm. "I'm here to speak, on record." By sunset, Claire's suspension was no longer just a hospital decision. It was a headline. Local veteran groups began calling the switchboard, asking one question: "Is it true you turned away a veteran in need?" No one at reception had answers, just scripts and shaky voices. Claire's neighbor, a retired history teacher, knocked gently and handed her a casserole dish. "My husband served in Korea," she said softly. "When he came home, broken, bruised, someone like you didn't ask about paperwork either." Claire's voicemail overflowed. Social media? Crashed with mentions. A journalist called 4 times. 2 job offers arrived from private clinics. Both said, "We saw what you did." Back at Riverside, morale cracked. Nurses took longer breaks. Paperwork slowed. A quiet rebellion crept through the halls. One supervisor wore a mini flag pin against dress code. A young resident hung a note in the staff lounge that read, "Compassion is not a policy violation." Administrator Hale called an emergency meeting. "This isn't about veterans," he insisted, looking at blank stares around the room. "This is about procedure, liability, structure, rules that keep us safe." One nurse raised her hand. "Safe? From what, sir? Compassion?" Hale ignored her. Later, his favorite coffee mug mysteriously disappeared from his office. That night, Hale sat alone in his office reviewing Claire's personnel file. 10 years of service. Flawless evaluations. Top patient satisfaction ratings. No warnings, no complaints, no blemishes. His phone rang. It was the chairman of the hospital board. "The story's everywhere, Rick," he said. "Veterans groups are organizing. A congressman's aide just called me." "She broke protocol," Hale insisted, voice tightening. "It's black and white." "Sometimes black and white needs reviewing," the chairman replied. "Fix this before it breaks us." Hale didn't sleep that night. By dawn, he'd drafted a cold, cautious statement. It defended the suspension, but promised a vague review of emergency care policies for veterans. It satisfied no one, least of all himself. 30 a.m. His assistant knocked, pale-faced. "There's a military vehicle outside. And, sir, it's got government plates. Flags, too." Hale walked to the window. A black SUV had pulled up to the front entrance. A uniformed driver stood beside it at attention. "Who is it?" Hale asked, suddenly dry-mouthed. "I don't know, but they're asking for Claire Morgan. And they mentioned your name, sir." Hale straightened his tie. Whatever was coming, he told himself he'd face it with dignity. But as the elevator dinged once more and the general stepped into the waiting room, his confidence cracked for the first time. The man stood tall in the center of the lobby. "I'm General Thomas Avery," he said, voice clear, steady. "And I served with the man your nurse helped." He paused. "Walter Briggs saved my life in Kandahar. Twice." A low murmur rolled through the staff nearby. The administrator swallowed. Hard. He didn't ask for attention. He just needed antibiotics and a little dignity. "Your nurse gave him both," General Avery said, his voice calm but firm. He turned to the front desk. "I understand you turned him away because he didn't have insurance." Silence. "When I was bleeding out behind a burning convoy, truck, Walter Briggs didn't ask me for a policy number. He didn't wait for forms. He just ran." The general's gaze scanned the room. "When we hit that IED outside Kandahar, 3 of our men were down. Briggs ran through gunfire. No helmet, no body armor, just duty, just loyalty." His voice remained measured, but his eyes burned with quiet authority. Then he reached inside his jacket and held up a sealed letter. "This one," he said, "is already on its way to the Secretary of Veterans Affairs." He pulled a smaller envelope from his inner pocket. "And this is for Claire Morgan." The administrator shifted uncomfortably. "General, this is highly irregular." Avery's head tilted slightly. "So is punishing compassion." He turned to a young nurse by the nurses' station. "Where is she?" "She's outside, sir, sitting on the front curb." Without another word, Avery walked out through the ER doors. Claire looked up as Boots approached the edge of the sidewalk. She blinked, unsure what to expect. The general stopped in front of her and saluted. "Corpsman Morgan," he said with gravity. "Permission to thank you properly." "I'm not military," she replied, standing slowly. "No," he said. "But you remembered what we fight for." He handed her the envelope. Inside, an invitation to speak at the National Medical Ethics Summit and a job offer from the VA, Regional Emergency Response Liaison. Reporters had already gathered. Phones were raised. But Claire said nothing. She just stared at the ER entrance. "Behind him. Will they change?" she asked. "Only if someone like you walks back in," Avery replied. For a moment, time stood still. Staff watched from doorways, through glass windows, on silent security monitors. Every breath felt held. Every step frozen. Inside, Administrator Hale stood by the nurses' station staring at the floor. His title meant nothing against the weight of Avery's medals, or the moral authority of his words. This wasn't about protocol anymore. It was about a system that had forgotten its purpose. Rules that had outlived their reason. Avery turned, back toward the crowd inside. "Walter Briggs," he said loudly, "came home from 3 tours. He has more shrapnel in his body than some museums have on display." Walter Briggs never asked for praise. He didn't chase recognition. When that infection set in, he waited 5 days before seeking help. Not because he didn't need it, but because he was trained to endure, not to inconvenience. Claire looked down at the envelope in her hands. "I don't understand," she said softly. "Why all this?" "For me?" General Avery's face softened. "Because this isn't just about you. This happens everywhere. Good people punished for doing the right thing. Someone had to draw the line." Inside, Administrator Hale stepped forward. "General Avery, may I speak with you privately?" "No, sir," the general said, loud enough for the lobby to hear. "If you have something to say it here." A tense silence followed. Hale glanced up at the hospital's mission statement etched in glass. "Healing with integrity." It mocked him now. "Nurse Morgan," Hale said, his voice carrying across the courtyard, "your suspension is rescinded." A nurse clapped quietly, then hesitated. Then others joined in, but the applause was hollow. "That's not enough," Avery replied. "Lifting a punishment isn't the same as admitting it never should have happened." Hale's voice cracked. "What would you have me do?" "Start," the general said, "by admitting the failure wasn't hers. It was a system that forgot its purpose." Claire remained seated, the letter still unopened. A small crowd had gathered. Patients, staff, even people from the street. Then someone stepped forward, Walter Briggs. No cane, no limp. His infection gone. He said nothing, just stood beside Claire. Hale looked between them. The general, the veteran, the nurse. 23 years of administration had taught him to protect the institution at all costs. But now, he couldn't. Remember why. "I apologize," he said finally, "to both of you. I lost sight of what mattered." Claire stood, brushing off her jeans. "What happens now?" Avery smiled. "That depends on what's in that envelope." 2 weeks later, the hospital installed a plaque near the ER doors for those who act with compassion before protocol. Claire never gave interviews, but she returned, not as just a nurse, but as the veteran care liaison, a role created for her. Walter Briggs visits every Thursday, always with coffee, always with a small flag he sets on the front desk. One day, a new nurse whispered, "Is that her?" "The woman from the story," Briggs replied without looking up. "She's not a story, she's a reminder." And now, every veteran who walks into Northgate Medical sees a sign above triage. "You're not forgotten. You're not alone. Welcome home." The story spread fast. Other hospitals reviewed their policies. A state senator introduced the Claire Morgan Act, legislation that guarantees emergency care for veterans, regardless of insurance. 3 months. After the General Avery incident, Claire walked the halls with quiet purpose. Her badge said Northgate Medical on one side and Department of Veterans Affairs on the other. The change wasn't symbolic. Hale had been reassigned, away from policy. 6 hospitals in the network adopted new veteran care protocols. Her office, once a converted supply room, now had a window and a steady flow of visitors. Veterans, new nurses, doctors asking questions she was now trusted to answer. General Avery had kept his word. The envelope he gave her hadn't just offered a job. It offered a blueprint, one she followed with calm determination. On a rainy Tuesday, exactly 4 months after Walter Briggs had limped into the ER, Claire found a package on her desk. Inside was a frame holding her old badge. Next to it, a handwritten note. "Some rules are meant to be broken. Thank you for knowing which ones." It wasn't signed, but the handwriting was unmistakable. That afternoon, a young resident stopped her. "I've got a Marine in room 7. No insurance. VA's 2 hours away. Protocol says transfer, but he's not stable." Claire smiled gently. "What does your instinct say?" The resident hesitated. "To treat him. Now." "Then," she said, "you already know what to do." As she turned to walk away, he called after her. "What if I get in trouble?" Claire paused, and with a calm certainty that now carried across the entire hospital, she replied, "Then I'll call the general." If you believe quiet courage still changes the world, hit like. Comment respect for those who choose right over rules, and subscribe, because stories like this remind us what honor really looks like.